Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. The U.S. Embassy in Beirut tonight is a floodlit scene of death and devastation. Much of the 7-story building is rubble, and in that rubble, possibly more victims of a massive terrorist car bomb. Lebanese police say at least 39 people were killed, 120 injured. The Pentagon says 1 U.S. Marine and 2 U.S. Army soldiers are among the dead, and that a 3rd soldier is believed dead. Also dead are 2 civilian employees of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Reporter Peter Sherman in Beirut begins our coverage.
A car apparently packed with more than 300 pounds of explosives blew up in the narrow drive at the entrance to the embassy on the West Beirut seacoast at 5 after 1 in the afternoon. Some say it had diplomatic plates. The driver died, an unwitting victim of a booby-trapped car, or perhaps the perpetrator of a suicide mission. A claim of responsibility came from a group called Islamic Holy War, believed to be pro-Iranian, which has linked itself with attacks on Western interests before. The deadly explosion ignited parts of the building and cars parked all around. It caused the reinforced concrete balconies on half of the front facade to collapse, dragging down part of the wall and narrow sections of floor.
It's a mess in there. Glass, blood everywhere. Apparently most of the people got out because the glass apparently just cut a lot of people. You can see it running off in trails down the hall. But it's probably one of the worst things I've seen in my entire life.
A briefcase with gear capable of contacting Washington by satellite was recovered. The ambassador, Robert Dillon, was inside, in a T-shirt, ready to go jogging, he said. He was trapped for a time, but he was not hurt. Special envoys Philip Habib and Morris Draper were far from the scene. Lebanese, American, and French troops, security police, and medical teams responded within minutes, rescuing those they could right away, those trapped inside when they could reach them. The American University Hospital and others got their disaster teams treating the wounded quickly. Embassy counselor John Reed, himself a casualty thrown from his chair by the force of the blast, cut by flying glass, spoke to the friends and relatives of American and local staff people who gathered to seek word. By evening, Marines of the multinational force had taken charge of security. The rescue work was still going on under floodlights by Lebanese experts with heavy equipment. Those who'd been near the scene had done what they could. The ambassador said the tragic attack would have no effect on the peace process. He said the embassy would be back in business as soon as it finds new premises. Peter Sherman, CBS News, Beirut.
President Reagan received a telephone call from Lebanese President Amin Gemayel within hours of the bombing. Mr. Reagan said the Lebanese president expressed his sorrow. The president used a ceremony in the Rose Garden to express his anger and determination.
This criminal attack on a diplomatic establishment will not deter us from our goals of peace in the region. We will do what we know to be right. And to this noble end, I rededicate the efforts of the United States.
Lebanon's ambassador to the U.S. came to the State Department to convey his country's sorrow.
I strongly condemn this brutal and cowardly attack. What happened today will not have any impact on the negotiations.
A State Department official stationed in Beirut today admitted that embassy security was lax, despite other attacks on U.S. embassies in that part of the world. U.S. intelligence officials are now searching for an answer of who and why. That search has to begin with a group that calls itself the Islamic Jihad, or Holy War Organization. It claimed responsibility for today's embassy bombing. It also claimed responsibility for last month's grenade attack on the U.S. Marine Patrol and similar attacks against French and Italian contingents of the multinational forces in Lebanon. It is also believed to be responsible for last year's murder of French Ambassador Louis de la Mare. Intelligence sources here say the group is linked to a radical faction of the Lebanese Shiite Muslim militia, led by a pro-Iranian who has close ties to both the Syrian and Iranian regimes. Their base, the Bekaa Valley, is now occupied by the Syrian army. The speculation here is that those behind the attack want to create new havoc, delay any peace agreement, and prompt voices in the U.S. to cry out for the American withdrawal from Lebanon. One cry has already come from Capitol Hill.
I think we should bring our Marines, those are the Marines that we sent over there as a peacekeeping force, we should bring them home. They should never have gone.
But most voices continue to share President Reagan's determination to stick it out.
I do not see this, however, as deterring us in our effort to bring peace and stability to the Middle East and to stabilize and strengthen the government of Lebanon.
Israeli sources say their agents are now trying to track down those behind today's bombing. Israel's deputy ambassador offered his nation's view as to why the attack happened.
I think that this attack was meant to serve as a symbolic psychological blow, a defeat for the United States, in the sense that America's very representation is attacked.
Those who died today will be remembered by their loved ones and by the staff in this building. There's a plaque in the main lobby honoring those who offered their lives in their country's diplomatic service. Today, the list got longer. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, the State Department.
The State Department said officially today that security at the Beirut Embassy had been tightened following the 1979 embassy takeover in Iran. A spokesman said significant improvements have been made, but the embassy is considered a prime terrorist target, and while acknowledging that security this particular day may have been lax, security experts say it simply is not possible to make the embassy immune to attack. Terrorists attacked the U.S. Embassy in Beirut with grenades in April of 1979, and several times since then it hit the complex with automatic weapons fire and rocket-propelled grenades.